Going to learn Be'ez Hashem a mimer for the Alter Rebbe, Chassidic discourse on the Alter Rebbe, in Parsha Shemos. In this parsha, the portion of Shemos, it's page Nun Beis Amud Gimel, page 104. So the conversation that this discourse will talk about is a very important conversation, a very profound conversation regarding the difference between the written aspect of the Torah, which is called Torah Shebiksav, the written part of the Torah, and the oral aspect of the Torah, which is called Torah Shebal Peh, the Torah of the mouth, the Torah that's transmitted through the mouth, the oral tradition. So the issue is, the question is, why is part of the Torah given over through a canonical text, through a writing, through a ksav, so something that was written, and there's a parallel, there's a Torah in the mitzvahs, there's a parallel to this text, which is the narrative. So a lot of ancient traditions, before the beginning of language, or written language, a lot of traditions, of ancient traditions, were given over orally. That a father or mother would give it over to the child, and so it would pass on from generation to generation. There was an oral transmission. But the Torah was written in the Torah Shebiksav, in a Sefer Torah, in a scroll, and it's a canonical text, which means that every single word is sacred, every single letter, even shapes of letters are sacred, and it's very specific, and it's exactly in its form. But the Torah itself, the written Torah, is an incomplete text, as it were, without the oral tradition. The oral aspect of the Torah is not another parallel tradition, but it's a supplement tradition. So when the Torah speaks about, for example, that a person should tie an ois al yadecha, a sign on your hand, that's a very cryptic statement. What does that mean? What is to tie a sign on your hand? What kind of sign should a person tie in their hand? And the oral tradition tells us, which was simultaneously given over to us at Sinai, that just like there's the Torah Shebiksav, there was a Torah Shebal Peh, there was an oral tradition of how we understand the text. And this is explained in great length by many different scholars throughout the years, but there's one particular text called Kuzi Hasheni that's a very nice book that talks about this concept, that so much of the Torah Shebiksav, of the written Torah, is mysterious and cryptic, and we wouldn't know what that means without the interpretation of the oral tradition. So the oral tradition tells us that when it says you should tie an ois yadecha, you should tie a sign upon your hands, this refers to the hand tefillin, the tefillin that you put on your hands. What is tefillin? The Torah doesn't tell you what tefillin is, but the oral tradition tells us. There's halacha l'moshe Sinai. There's traditions that we receive from Sinai that tells us that tefillin has to be a square, it has to be a box, it has to have black parts of the bottom. It has to have certain portions of the Torah that's placed inside. So this is already an oral tradition, which means it's incomplete. The Torah Shebiksav is an incomplete text without the interpretation or the elaboration and explanation of the Torah Shebal Peh, of the oral tradition. So why is it that we have these two aspects of the Torah? One is that it's transmitted, the transmission of something that's within a text, a canonical text, an absolute text. This is the way it's written, and this is the way we receive the tradition of this text. And there's a simultaneously parallel interpretation of that text, which is the Torah Shebal Peh, in the oral tradition. And more specifically, the oral tradition, there's parts of the oral tradition which is the elaboration or the explanation, the exploration of what the Torah Shebiksav says, what is written. But part of Torah Shebal Peh, certainly in times of Chazal, the times of the sages, in times of the Mishnah forward, about 2,500 years ago forward, the rabbis, the sages, Chazal, they enacted many different practices of putting a mishmeres l'mishmarti, putting a fence around the Torah. That's the image of Chazal, of the sages, which means that the Torah says, for example, that the tchum, maybe min Torah, is a much larger 12,000 Yud Beis Mil, and Chazal say that the tchum Shabbos, that you're not allowed to walk out of Shabbos out of your city of Alpayim, 2,000 feet, roughly 3,000 feet outside the city gates. So because we're afraid that a person is going to walk a longer distance, so Chazal, the sages, refrain it and say, okay, we're not even walk even a shorter distance. So a lot of things that Chazal enacted, a lot of the practices that's part of the oral tradition as well, part of the Torah Sheba'al Peh enacted by the sages, was to ensure the severity and the discipline and the practice of the mitzvah itself. And there's many different mitzvahs. That there's the Torah law that says this is what you should be doing or you shouldn't do. And then there's the rabbinic law, which is the oral tradition that says we're going to make sure that in order for you not to do this, which is prohibited in the Torah, you won't also do something else that could be similar. So let's say, for example, you are not allowed to drink milk from a cow that was not seen as it was being milked. Technically, the milk of the cow is kosher. But if you didn't see it being milked, then it's possible that other milks from different unkosher animals were mixed into the milk. So therefore, you're not allowed to eat this milk. So the sages enacted that if you go to buy milk from somebody that you didn't see, that was not seen, that the cow was milk, then we don't know if this person mixed in other milks. Therefore, we shouldn't eat it. That's a gzeira. That's a stringency on top of the mitzvah itself. So let's understand this whole idea of something that's written. When something is written, it's not committed to memory. Because when something is remembered, the question is, how does memory work? Is memory something, do you remember something because it's a possibility to be forgotten, which would seem more connected to an oral tradition, versus you don't need memory when it's clearly in the text. You don't need it. Or you can also argue that that's the memory itself. The memory itself is the text. So let's see something that's connected to this week's parsha in the portion of Shemos. And this is the way the Alter Rebbe phrases this mimer, this Chassidic discourse. So it says, Zeshmi Loilam. This is my name forever. And this is my remembrance from generation to generation. So there's a difference between Shmi, which is my name that will be forever. It's also written with Ilam, it's written without a Vav, which means that my name is concealed, the Gemara says in Psachim. This is my name forever, and my memory, my name and my memory. So upon this verse, upon this pasuk, it says in Tikkun Zohar that Shmi, the word Shmi, my name, is numerically 350, with the letters of Yud and He, which is the first two letters of the name of Hashem. That is in total 365. So Shmi, my name, with the first two letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, of the four-letter name of Hashem, is 365. What is 365? That is the negative commands. That's the lois says of the Torah, the things that we're supposed to refrain from and are prohibited doing. Zichri, this is my memory. So Zichri is 237. With Vavhe, with the final two letters of the name of Hashem, so Yud Kei Vav Kei, there's four letters in the name of Hashem. Yud Kei with Shmi is 365. Zichri, Vav Kei is 11. 11 with 237 is 248. What is 248? 248 is the amount of positive mitzvahs, positive commands. This is what it says in Tikkun Zohar. It says the Alter Rebbe, we have to understand. We have to understand, why do we say this, in this analogy, in this description, we're saying that in the four letters name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud He, the first two letters, is the higher form of the name, the masculine and feminine of the higher form, or Chachma Bina, which is the higher form. It's a point and an elaboration. That's literally how the shape of the letters are. And Vav Kei is the lower letters of the name of Hashem, which is the lower dynamic of the masculine and the feminine. The Vav is the line, is the masculine. The He again is the feminine, and the lower feminine, which is Zohar Ampin, the six midos, the six attributes, divine attributes, and Malchus, which is the recipient, which is the feminine. So, in this analogy that we say Shmi with Yud Kei, with the 15, is the loisase, is the prohibited things that we're not supposed to do, and then zichri with the vavhe is ramach, is the 248, which are the positive that we could do. That would seem that the loisase, the prohibitions are higher because it's connected to the yudke. It's higher than the mitzvahs essay, the positive commands, which is connected to the vavke. So to understand this, why is this something that's so puzzling? First of all, the simple reason why it's puzzling because you think that an action that you do is greater than an action that you don't do. And secondly, there's a principle that the Gemara talks about in Yevamos, in the beginning of Yevamos, the Gemara talks, and the sugi over there, the Gemara talks about this idea of essay doichel loisase, that a positive, if you have a positive mitzvah to do something, by doing it, you're also going to be violating a loisase, a prohibition. So the principle is, and Chazal Adarish, that your essay is doicha loisase, that a positive command pushes aside a negative command, if they come simultaneously. The Ramban, Al-Torah says that the reason why essay is doicha loisase, the reason why essay pushes aside a loisase, a positive pushes away a negative, is because the essay is connected to ava, to love. A loisase is connected to yira, to awe, to fear, to reverence. And ava is greater than yira. Love is greater than awe, greater than fear. So doing something for Hashem, that's ava, that's love. Refraining from not what Hashem says not to do, Torah says not to do, and you don't do, that's reverence, that's respect. So ava is greater than yira. Therefore, essay is doichel loisase. Now, if you say this is the principle that essay is really doichel loisase, you would assume, according to the way the Ramban understands this principle of essay doichel loisase, the positive pushes aside the negative, is that an essay is actually greater than loisase. That's why it pushes it aside, because ava is greater than yira. But from this passage, where the Tikkun Zohar says that Shmi is connected to Yudke and Zichr is connected to Vavke, it seems that Shmi, which is the loisase, the Yudke, is higher. That means the negative is actually higher than the positive. So how does that come together? And that's not really a great question, because there's another way of understanding the principle of Esen Doichel Loisase, not according to the Ramban. There's another shit in the Rishonim to understand it. That's a chiddush. That it's a novelty, an aim by chidushay. Not that an essay is actually greater than a loisase. In fact, the essay, a loisase, maybe is greater than an essay. Therefore, a loisase you can get chorus on a loisase, you can get skill on a loisase. And even though the Torah talks about rewards of an essay of doing something, and something etc., when you do something, but it's possible that the loisase has even a greater reward, and the Torah doesn't describe it. So it's possible the loisase is actually greater, even though we say in principle essay is doichel loisase. You could say that's a chiddush, that's actually a novelty, but generally loisase is greater, which seems to say from the Tikkun Zohar that the non-doing, the refraining, the holding back, the prohibition, is actually greater than the essay. And to understand what this means. Then the general question is, talking about Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition, why in fact wasn't it written? Why wasn't it ever written? Now, today you can argue, say that it is written. The Rambam brings down that Rebbe Yehuda Nasi, Rebbe, wrote down the Mishnah, even though there's no clear Gemara for this, that Rebbe Yehuda did this, but the Rambam brings this down, that Rebbe Yehuda wrote the Mishnah, and then later the Gemara was written. So Torah Sheba'al Peh was written, or it is written, is continuously being written. But the truth is, if you look at Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition, the general construction of the oral tradition is that it's written in a very cryptic way. That means if you take a page in the Talmud, a page in the Gemara, which is Torah Sheba'al Peh, that was written, you can spend 6 months, without exaggeration, on one page of the Talmud, one page of the Gemara, because it's written in such an encoded way that even though the bare bones of the idea is written, is ksav, is actually written, but there's so much more of the oral aspect of it, and the personal engagement with the text that overrides even the Torah Sheba'al element. Because really, Torah Sheba'al Peh is inherently, the oral tradition is inherently always Ba'al Peh. It's always an oral tradition. That's why a student who really wants to understand Talmud, who really wants to understand Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition must have a living teacher to transmit this teaching, at least to begin the process of unfolding. But so the question is, why was it actually not written? Why is it not written clearly? Just like the canonical text of the Torah Sheba'al, of the written text. So in your diksiv ayah sefer mizbah machar pirush the beginnes ayah atzmu sefer. It says where is the author? It says passing shai. So where is the author? Ayah, like ayah going kvoide. What is ayah? The madreg of ayah, the level of ayah, where ayah aleph yud hey is the sefer, is the author. It doesn't say for Yitzir that the creation was created through three elements were created in the world. B'sefer, v'sipur. That the world was created through an author, a book, and a story. There's different versions in Sefer Yitzir, if it says b'sefer, but this version, the way it's brought down mostly in Chassidus, is b'sefer, v'sipur, which is an author, a book, and a story. The author is, of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the creator. The book, so that's the ayah, that's the madrega of ayah, that's the who, that's the mysterious otherness of the creator, the numinous, the majesty, the transcendent one, the one that we're in awe of, its presence, the mystery. That's the sefer, that's the author. The book that the author writes is the Torah Shebiksav, is the written Torah. The sipur is the story. The story is already an oral experience, which is going to be more related to the sefer. The sipur is more going to relate to Torah Shebapeh. The Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah is actually this book. And who is the author? The author is the madrega, the level of ayeh. Shu aleph yudke, which is the aleph of yudke. Yudke, we said, yud and the hey, is the first two letters of the name of Hashem. The yudke comes from the Shem Havai Nimshal Bechinas Aleph Bechinas Chacham Atzilus. Like the Yudke really comes from the Aleph, which represents the Madrega, the level of Chachma Atzilus, the wisdom that exists within Atzilus. That this is connected in the Alter Rebbe writes in a short. Kavan is Aleph Echad. When a person says Aleph of Echad, when he davens and says Shema, and he says Aleph of the Echad, and when he says Aleph of Echad, he should have intention to the place of the Mazel Noitzer, which is from the Yigim and Luzarach, the 13 attributes of mercy, which is connected from the 5 upwards, from the first 8, and then from the 5 upwards is connected to Kesser, the 3 Madregas in Kesser. And when a person says Echad, they should have an intention for that level of Kesser, that means that Aleph, when you look at Yudke Vavke, which is a tradition that it's a very old tradition from the early Mukabbalim. The Yosegi Katalia writes this in Shari Ora, and it comes from his Rebbe, Rama Balafia, has a whole arichas, a whole length of this idea, that actually the 4 letters in the name of Hashem, in essence, really has 5 letters. It's Aleph, Yud, and a Hey, and a Vav, and a Hey. Aleph is the first letter. The Aleph is the mysterious, the hidden one, the Chacham Stima, the hidden wisdom. Therefore, the word Aleph also comes from Aleph Chacham, to teach me wisdom. So Aleph comes from teaching, which means that it represents the state of Kesser, which is the highest madrega, the highest level. So Ayeh, when you say who, Ayim Koin Kavoid, the Ayeh is a very big word that's said during davening, especially when you say it in Kesser. Ayim Koin Kavoid. The Arizal says you should have intention that when you say the word Ayeh, Aleph Yud Hey, you should have intention for Bonachayim Mazoyne, that you should have sustenance, and Ruach HaKodesh, you should have sustenance, you should have children, and healthy children, and you should have divine inspiration. And there's a whole arichas in a lot of Sifrei Chassidus about this idea of Ayeh, to scream the Ayeh, to say the letter Ayeh with great intention. The Alter Rebbe says, what is the word Ayeh? What is the word Ayeh? Who? Who is the ultimate who? Who's the ultimate mystery? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the transcendent one, the infinite one, the creator. So it's the Aleph Yud K. That's the Sefer. When it says Ayah Sefer, where's the author? That is the author. The author is the where, is the who. The one that's mysterious, that's hidden. What's being revealed is the book. That's Torah Shebiksav, the revealed Torah. Also, the Alter Rebbe says that Ois Aleph Nichlu Gimel Ois is the Shem Havaya. Also, the letter Aleph actually has the 3 letters in the name of Shem Hashem. It has Yud Vav Yud. Because it has Aleph, right? And it also has Aleph, Yud, and a Vav. How does it have Aleph, Yud, and a Vav? Because the Arizal writes, Shetmunis ha'Aleph Torah Shebiksav Yud Vav Yud. That when you write Torah Shebiksav, when in the script, that when you write the letter Aleph, Aleph could be written in various different ways. So the Ari says when you write the letter Aleph, it should be a Yud on top, a Vav in the middle, and a Yud on the bottom. So you have the Aleph itself and the whole structure, but you also have the Yud and the Vav. Those are three letters of the four types of letters in the five names, in the five letter of the name. It's Aleph, Yud, Kei, Vav, He. Now, it doesn't have a He, but it has an Aleph and it has a Yud and a Vav. It's just missing the He. So that's what it says in Torah Shebiksav, the way it should be written. Now, there's a Tefillin Yud, Kei, Vav, Dalet. But however, in Tefillin, you should write Yud, Vav, Dalet. Yud on top, Vav, and then a Dalet should be written, a backwards Dalet. Why is it Yud Kei Vav? Why is it this way? Because Torah Shebiksav, what is Torah Shebiksav? What is the written Torah? In Torah Shebiksav was revealed the oir of Abba Datzilus, was revealed the light of Chachma Datzilus, of the wisdom of Atzilus, which is the highest level of Atzilus, of the oneness with the Creator. Because Torah comes from the level of Chachma. It comes from the Yisoid of Abba. What is the Yisoid of Abba? There's Madreg of Yisoid of Abba. Yisoid is Yisoid is the masculine quality that allows for the ejection or the piercing through that comes into Malchus, into the vessel. That's why Yisoid is connected to the Midas Yisoid in the structure of the human being. But the Yisoid of Abba means that Abba now, which is Chachma, which is wisdom, is being revealed into the world. That's Yisoid Abba. Therefore, okay. So therefore, Ayah Soifer, that's the Ayah Aleph Yud Kei Yud Hey represents the author. That represents the transcendent one. Then that was revealed in a book. So from the place of the Ayah, from the Yud Kei, that's when it was revealed the Sefer, the book. Generally, the Torah Shebiksav speaks about when the Torah says, the Torah gives a description of an event. Torah is a book. It's very hard to quantify what the Torah itself in terms of its literacy, if you wish. The Torah on one hand is a book of narratives, and on one hand is a book of law. That's the Torah's Lashon Hara, that comes from the word of law, of teachings. But it's a teaching that's couched within a narrative. So the Torah will describe, when the Torah wants to describe a certain type of law, of practice, and what you should do, the Torah describes it within a narrative. When a person is going in the field and sees this is what he should do. Or the person builds his house, therefore he should build a gate around on his roof. It doesn't say you should build a gate around a roof. Or when a person is given the bias, when a person builds a home, they should be stay home from war. That's the way the Torah describes. The Torah describes law, halacha, practice, couched within narrative. But generally, the Torah is talking about what a person should do. It's a story of how we're supposed to live our lives. And more specifically, it's about the key mitzvah essay. It's about doing this particular action. Because, why does the Torah talk about doing things? Because the Torah, because the Torah Shebiksav, the oral, the written Torah comes from the level of the Vav, which is the lower Madrega, which is the revealed level. This is the concealed level. Hanistar LaHashem Alekenu. The concealed is LaHashem LeYudke, represents the higher Madrega, the level of Yud Hey, which is transcendent and concealed, the mystery. Vaniglois, and what is revealed is Lanu, is Lanu, Lenu, is the Vav and the Hey, which is revealed to us. So the Torah talks about the level of already, it's revealed, with the Vav and the Hey, which is already the part that's, the divine presence is already revealed in this world. Therefore, it represents already the revealing aspect. So therefore, it's connected to a specific action. You're doing something, and action is a revealing. I do this, it's clear to me. When a person puts on tefillin, or lights Shabbos candles, or does some positive mitzvah, or gives tzedakah, gives charity, you can see the act. It's a revealed act within this world. Even the mitzvahs that the Torah talks about, like mitzvahs essays, that the Torah talks about something that a person has to have in their heart, but in the world of halacha, it's not enough, it's not sufficient enough to have this emotion, but the emotion has to be expressed in an action. A person says, you should love your fellow neighbor as yourself. That's not revealed. But the truth is that the way a person is Mekayim actually fulfills that obligation of like the Rambam and Hilchos Avos. What does it mean that a person is Mekayim? Not the Chiyuv, the Kiyum. How does a person Mekayim? How does a person show love? If they visit the sick, or they go to a funeral home, or they go to visit someone that passed on, the family of someone that passed on, they do nichum avelim. That's an expression of the love. That's part of the mitzvah sesei. That's the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to reveal in this world an action of a doing, because it comes from Zad Atzilus. It comes from the level which is revealed, which is Vave. That's the lower level of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is in the revealed aspect of the world. So therefore it comes to therefore it comes into the world of action, and therefore it's also revealed in the world of Ksav, in the actual script. Voice is Vitagav, it's revealed, you can see it. You open up a Torah scroll, you can see the letters and its crowns. However, the Alter Rebbe says that the source of the Loisa say Avshim Gam Kim Torah Shebiksav, even though the Loisa say also come from Torah Shebiksav, because that's where the Torah Shebiksav also speaks about the prohibitions of the Torah. There, the Loisa say comes from Madrega level of Yudke, the higher, the mysterious, the hidden, the concealed. Because therefore, the reason why there's no practice, why we don't do a mitzvah leisa saying, is because the light that's drawn down, the oil that we draw down through every single mitzvah, when we do a positive mitzvah, and we do, let's say, like the description Alter Rebbe gives, like tefillin and esrog, you put on tefillin, you shake the lulav and esrog, you're doing a physical act, a revealed act, and therefore you're revealing in this world the presence of the divine, Hashem's presence in the world of Zar Ampin, which means a revealed aspect of creation, of the Creator. However, when a person refrains from doing and doesn't do, which is the loisa say, the non-doing, you're revealing even a higher light. And therefore, because it's such a higher light, there's no vessel that can contain that light. There's nothing for us to do. The only thing for us to do is to not do. The only thing that we could do is not do. And by not doing, that's where we draw down the light. Because it comes from a place that's higher than doing. Because it comes from a place of Yudke. What does that mean? In very simple language just means like this, that in doing, when a person does something, doing something is our finite expression of ourself. Let's say a person commits himself to do this positive act. So then the question is, to give charity. How much charity did they give? With how much intention did they give? With how much feeling did they give? And what type of charity did they give? And that really depends. That's very much distinguished between one person and the next. You can see that this person is doing this positive mitzvah in his particular way or her particular way, and this other person is doing it their way. Let's say the mitzvah of learning Torah, which is a mitzvah's essay. One person has a stronger capacity, has a greater intelligence, learns Torah in one way. The other person has a less capacity, a lesser level of intelligence, a lower IQ maybe, learns Torah in a different way. But some person has a very great EQ, and therefore when they show acts of love, it's done with a lot of sympathy and empathy, and versus a person that doesn't have that, a very high level maybe IQ, but not EQ, doesn't do that. So every time someone's doing something in this world, there's always a distinction. Because it's our finite expression of ourselves, it's expressive of who we are. But then there's something deeper. When you don't do something, in the non-doing, you're expressing something that's infinite. And therefore, it's actually all the same. Two people not eating non-kosher food are doing the exact same act. It could be the biggest tzaddik like Moshe Rabbeinu, or the lowliest of people, the base sinner. They're both, if they refrain from doing this, this non-doing, they're both doing it equally. Because in non-doing, we're all equal. In doing, we're distinguished because doing is a finite expression of our soul. In non-doing, we express something that's even beyond us, or something that's transcendent of my individuality, something that's transcendent of the other person's individuality, and therefore it represents some type of higher light, higher revelation that doesn't distinguish between one and the next. That's in the non-doing. So the Alter Rebbe says like this. Torah Shebiksav is connected to the revealing aspect. Therefore, in Torah Shebiksav, what is most revealed is in the practices of doing. because the practices of doing is connected to the Vav and the Hey, which is the lower letters of the name Hashem, which is connected to Zichri, to remembrance, which is being revealed in this world. So it's being remembered in this world, and it's being seen in this world. That is the revealing of the name of Hashem, of the Vav Hey, which to connect it with the word, combined with the letter Zichri, is Ramach, is the 248 positive mitzvahs that we do in this world, and we're drawing down the light through our doing. But by refraining from doing, by the state of non-doing, let's say by keeping Shabbos and the refrain of doing, of the non-doing, and in the being state of Shabbos, we're actually expressing something even deeper than anything that we can express in any type of doing. That's with regards to Torah Shebiksav in general, because Torah Shebiksav is something that's being revealed. Hine kol divrei soifrim. So the Alter Rebbe says something very beautiful. He says the old divrei soifrim, the whole idea of the divrei soifrim is asu mishmaris l'mishmarti, also mishmaris l'mishmarti, which means it's a gate around the practice that the Chazal say, the sages say. We're afraid that you're going to do this action that the Torah prohibits, so therefore we're going to back it up even one step further. That's loisase. That's a stronger level of refrain. Now there are mitzvahs shav mitzvahs of Nerabanan, but generally, Chazal, the general takanas Chazal, or which is generally in the loisase, in Lizgadabay, is the refrain. Even though Lizgadabay means also doing a chum, but this is generally the refraining. This is the idea of siyag, to make a gate around the Torah. Therefore, they're called divrei soifrim. Remember, we said before that there's the sofer and there's the sefer. The sofer is the author, the mysterious one, the hidden one, the transcendent one that's being revealed in the book. The book is Torah Shebiksav, is the written Torah. But the ayah sofer, the ayah, the aleph yud hey, where is the sofer? Which means the sofer is the mysterious one, the one that's hidden, which you don't necessarily could be concealed within the book itself, and therefore it's possible that a person can learn Torah, God forbid, in a way that like Baruch Torah Tchila, that they don't make a blessing. That the Gemara says a pay aleph in the door, and that means that they're not connected to the noise in that Torah, to the giver of the Torah, because you can look at it as just an intellectual text. You don't see the author, the mysterious other, the transcendent one, the infinite one that's being revealed in the book. So who's the soifrim? When Chazal said, the Gemara says in Kedushin, that Chazal are called soifrim, that they're called counters or authors. But also over here it means the divrei soifrim is connected to the word sofer, which is the author. Why are they connected to the author? Because they are connected to the loisase. Come I can call to the seven Shacham Misham, Rain Lamile Mitash Zavnik save their Machas Session, Dacham Vavke, Shumsav Mikhalim. Mashang gives them a mile Mizul, Rain Loya actually Sabash my Saksav. Okay. Therefore, Torah Shebiksav is the revealed aspect of the Vavke, therefore is revealed in the text. Torah Shebiksav is the revealed aspect of the Creator's presence in this world, therefore it's revealed in an action. However, Divrei Soifrim, the words of the scribes, the words of the authors, which in the way Chazal phrase it, represents Chazal themselves, that they're called the authors. Why are they called the authors, says the Alter Rebbe? Because they're connected to the light, the or, that's beyond the book, beyond the action, beyond the manifestation, beyond what could be revealed. They represent the mysterious. And how does it reflect in actual practice? By non-doing. So when Chazal say don't do, you can look at it as like, okay, Chazal is just trying to make sure you don't do this so you won't come to do something else. But on a deeper level, the act of refraining and saying, I'm doing something for Hashem, by not doing, in a way reveals a presence of Hashem that's even higher than the doing. Because you're revealing from the mysterious one, from the author. That's why Torah Shebiksav is actually called the author. And therefore the Alter Rebbe says, therefore, therefore, it could not be revealed in Torah Shebiksav, and therefore the Torah Shebiksav, the oral tradition was always oral, always remained oral, because it cannot be revealed in Ksav. Ksav is already a manifestation; it's a finite; it's already a particular expression. Chazal are connected to the loisase, which is the yudke, which is the idea of refraining, which means they're connected to something from the mysterious, for something with the hidden, which is a revealing of something that cannot be revealed in a place of manifestation and any type of doing, but particularly in a non-doing. So therefore, the way the Torah of that revelation, of that type of Torah, that type of transmission, had to be oral. Not only that, it had to be through the mouth. El dafka b'al peh, dafka ki Abba yisod barta, because wisdom, chachma, the Zohar says, Abba is Yisoid Barta. Chachma is the foundation of Barta, which is the daughter which represents Malchus Karino Peh, which is connected to the mouth. So therefore, Torah Shabbal Peh is an oral tradition, because in the oral tradition is connected to the place of the author. When something is written down, there's a certain deadening of the author's presence. Of course, in Torah we cannot say that, but there's a certain deadening and a certain presence when a person, let's say, has an idea. Let's say we think about it in terms of a human being. When a person has an idea in their head, and the idea is full of this flow and this imagination and these connections, and then they finally write it down on a piece of paper. The paper is a reduction, is already a tzimtzum, is a constriction of the original thoughts that a person had when they existed within their mind. That's why it never comes out as good an idea that you have in your mind the way you express it, actually, even and certainly when you write it down, because in writing you have to write it in a very organized way, and it doesn't have that same type of flow. So the Alter Rebbe was saying is that in Torah Shebiksav, it's revealed, the author is revealed in a particular way. The author is revealed in the book, and the book is the Torah Shebiksav, is the written Torah, and it says this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, and particularly what it's more interested in on some level is in what you're doing. Of course, also in the license say, but what you're doing, what you have to, how you have to do in this world, and therefore because it's a very particular way of expression, which means therefore it's a particular finite expression, as if, of the Creator's presence in this world. However, by say, by the refraining, it's not just Chazal just adding another restriction, another limitation, another prohibition, because they're worried. They're saying sometimes I love you so much that I can't express my love in any type of doing. I can only express my love in a being state. Because if I do it already, it's already an expression, then it's already finite. It's already reduced to a particular action. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do acts of love. Of course you should. But to understand that the act of love and the expression of love is not the same emotion that a person actually feels the love within their heart. Same thing also with our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the Creator. The act of love, the doing of love, the love acts that we do, is a doing state. Therefore, it's revealing a type of revelation that is in the possibility of revelation of a finite expression. One person acts this way and reveals that much love, and the other person does it differently. But in the non-doing state of just the being of withholding, everyone is expressing such infinite love that it cannot be expressed. I can't say it. I can't speak it. I can't do it. That's the Divrei Sefer. That's what Chazal are trying. That's Rebbe Divrei Sefer, Yosef Divrei Torah. That's the sweetness of Divrei Sefer. The sweetness of Chazal is that they're so passionately in love, and us as well, that the love is so great that it cannot be expressed in an action. Now the Alter Rebbe says, but of course, even Torah Shebiksav, you find that even in the written Torah, there are aspects within the Torah that they're so deep that they cannot be expressed in words. Therefore, sometimes it says, sometimes the Torah says very clearly, Hashem spoke to Moshe, and then Moshe spoke to Klal Yisrael. But sometimes the Torah doesn't actually say that. It just doesn't say. It only says that Moshe told Klal Yisrael. But it doesn't say that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell Klal Yisrael. If you look at Torah, if you look in Eila Dvarim Shedibur Moshe, which is the final book of the Torah, the fifth book of the Torah, which is known as Deuteronomy, which is a repetition. Mishnah Torah means a repetition of the Torah. In Mishnah Torah, it never says that Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, but it says that Moshe Rabbeinu told Klal Yisrael mitzvahs. There's a lot of mitzvahs in the Torah that speak about in Dvarim that don't speak about in the previous Chumashim, in the previous 4 books. For example, later, like towards the end of the Torah, where it says, you should write the Torah. The actually writing of the Torah is a mitzvah that Moshe Rabbeinu says. But how did Moshe Rabbeinu get this mitzvah? It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that Hashem told him this mitzvah. And the answer is, because this was such a deep mitzvah, like that Parshas Dvarim, that it was so deep that it could not reveal itself in an expression that Hashem told to Moshe, because that would already be a reduction. This is really a very strong foundation of understanding of the 5th book of the Torah, because Chazal, the Megillah Gemara talks about whether you can stop, how do you stop, etc. The difference between the Toichachas, and the Gemara says that Dvarim you can do certain things because it's a Pi'atzah. Moshe Rabbeinu said it on his own. Tyson says, what do you mean he said his own? Ruach HaKodesh, he said it with Ruach HaKodesh. So what's the fifth book of the Torah? The fifth book of the Torah, the way the Maral conceives this idea, is if the fifth book of the Torah, Dvarim, is sort of a hybrid between Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal between the written and the oral. And this is what the Alter Rebbe is saying. In Torah Shebiksav, in the first four books, it says, Vaydaber Shalom Moshe Elohim. Hashem tells Moshe to do this. And Moshe tells clearly what happens. Sometimes it's not exactly the way, but that's the general transmission of the Torah. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu a certain thing, to do this mitzvah, and then Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael the mitzvah that Hashem told him. But in Elu Dvarim, because it's so high, it represents also the fifth level, which is Yichidus Shabbat Because Elu Dvarim, the fifth book, is the highest madrega, and it's also connected to Torah Shebal Peh, and also connected to Torah Shebiksav, both the oral and the written. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, therefore it's possible. Therefore, not only possible, but that's the way it happens, is that it never says that Hashem transmits the information and says this is what you should do to Moshe, but only Moshe refers to Klal Yisrael, because that's the mystery. That's the Ayah Sofer. That's the Sofer. That's the hidden, mysterious one that's so present in the book that it doesn't show up. This is the paradoxical nature of presence. That sometimes the presence is so strong that it appears everywhere and nowhere. Because when it appears in a particular way, then that's the particular formation of its revelation. But when it appears nowhere, it's appearing everywhere, and it's always in a state of mystery. He says, because Moshe was Yisayid Abba. Moshe comes from this place of Chachma, comes from this place of wisdom, which is the Shoresh HaTorah, which is the source of Torah. Therefore, Moshe was Koyach Ma'ach Chachma. In a Maim Shisiu, which Maim is Chachma. Hu b'chin zadi b'ram Shachma, min ha'matz lo yinsei baruch hu yisayid Abba, Chachma el bin mitzvah hi, or mitzvah gad hi. That's the transition to Moshe. V'hinim v'dav Moshe b'nei Yisrael. Then Moshe speaks to Klal Yisrael, hu b'chin b'ram Shachma, nishmi yisayid Abba, gilu in Yisrael. Then Moshe even reveals it further to Klal Yisrael, to the people of Israel. Chen yashay zin yonim gavoy mo'oid shel yachal yisav sheksav adin Shachma erin say baruch hu v'huni rak shenichtav m'shachma gilu yisayid Abba l'mata. Shalom v'dav Hashem. It was so intense, such a intense revelation that it couldn't be revealed in its entirety. And the Alter Rebbe concludes this Maimon and says this is also the idea of the Arba. That Arba, this Arba Choshech HaMachlis B'charis. In Parshas Boy, Arba is the story of the grasshoppers. So in the beginning of Parshas Boy, there's a big mystery. The Medrash asked this question already. That it says, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Boy Parei. All the other makkahs, all other plagues, Hashem says that you should go to Parei or not go to Parei. But Hashem already tells Moshe what's going to be. There's going to be dam, there's going to be tzadeh, there's going to be kinim, there's going to be blood, there's going to be frogs, etc. And sometimes Hashem tells Moshe you should go to Parei. Sometimes he tells you to go in the morning. And sometimes he tells you doesn't have to go. But there's already, Moshe knows what the next makkah is going to be, the plague is going to be. Arba is a very mysterious makkah, a very mysterious plague, because Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Parei. He's told to go, Boy Parei, come with me to Parei. Come with me, like the Zohar says. He goes to Parei. And then in front of Parei, Moshe Rabbeinu says that if you don't send the people out of Egypt, you don't tell Klal Yisrael out of Egypt, there's going to be macher, there's going to be arba in the land, there's going to be grasshoppers in the land. He says if you're not going to send the people out, there's going to be arba. But it doesn't say anywhere that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that there's going to be arbas. How did Moshe know? Or where does it come from? So the Alter Rebbe says that the reason for this, why there was never a transmission from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe in a revealed way, in Torah Shebiksav, why was it never written? Why was it never inscribed that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that tomorrow there's going to be arba, and then Moshe repeated to Parei, because Liya Sheshoyesh arba gavoy, because the shoyesh of this makkah, this arba is a very high level. Because it represents, arba is connected to the word arba, which means plenty, multiple, infinite. Arba is Zari, I'm going to multiply your descendants, which was told to Avram. That Avram was told about the Klal Yisrael. So since arba represents something that's infinite, something that the oil of arba is an infinite koyach, so therefore it wasn't revealed. Maybe the Alter Rebbe also means it's connected to this idea what the Arizal talks about. The Riyah Kodesh writes that the 10 makkahs, the 10 plagues, correspond to the 10 spheres from down upwards. So in Magid Misharim from Yosef Kaya, it's actually from top down. from Keser to Malchus. But in the system of that the Arizal revealed, it's from bottom up, which means that don't say the first 7 corresponds to Malchus and the 6 spheres, and then Arba is Bina, Makas Choshech is Chachma, and then Makas Bechoris is Kesers. So this was stim. This is very clear. What the Alter Rebbe is saying is that since Arba comes from a place of Yudke is Chachma Bina, and Yudke is Anisar Shel Hashem Elokeinu, which is the hidden, which what the Alter Rebbe says is Torah Shebal Peh, which is the oral transition, which is not revealed in Ksav. So therefore, it was never written in the Torah. Why isn't the Torah right by Arba? That Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu that it's going to be Arba because it's not Anisar Shel Hashem Elokeinu. This is something that's so deep and so infinite because it comes from the place of transcendence, which is connected to Yudke. There's some things that Hashem tells Moshe, and it wasn't possible to write that Moshe told Yisrael. But it's of course it's clear that Moshe Rabbeinu told Klal Yisrael. If he was told by Hashem to tell Klal Yisrael, he told him because that's what it says that Hashem told Moshe, but it wasn't revealed. So Alter Rebbe is basically saying that's the end of the Maimon. Alter Rebbe is basically saying that there is 2 types of revealings in the presence of Hashem's presence in this world. There's a revealing of Hashem's presence in this world, which is a type of finite revelation that's revealed in something that could be tangible and viscerally and experienced and expressed, which is something like that is written in the Torah Shebiksav, which is the living embodiment of Torah, the written Torah, the canonical text that's actually written, and every letter means something and is revealing something, and something very particular in this particular formation. That's already a certain type of revelation of the presence of Hashem, which is connected more to the mitzvah's essay, the positive doings in this world, what we should do in this world, and express ourselves in this world, and how we express ourselves in this world to reveal the divine presence within our lives and within the world and with the cosmic world in general. And then there's the Ayah Sefer, which is the author, which is concealed within the book, of course. And the author is the living presence of the book, but sometimes it's possible to read the book without seeing the author. But where do you see the author's presence even stronger? Is particularly the Divrei Seifim is in the oral living tradition, where the aliveness of the tradition is by definition something that's alive. In a transmission, that's something that's given over in a text. By definition, it's possible to see the text as something that's no longer alive, God forbid, because that's the way you can see text. You don't see the author's presence within the text if you don't have a relationship with the author. You just see the text. But in the definition of an oral tradition is that it's only alive because it is alive, because it's constantly being transmitted. In the transmission of the oral tradition, this is what Alter Rebbe says, in the transmission of the oral tradition, because it's a living tradition, it's connected to the ultimate mystery, the Divrei Seifrim, which is the presence of Hashem, the infinite presence of Hashem that's always alive and present in every aspect in life, and therefore it's always there. And where is it specifically? It's expressed specifically in the non-doing, not in the doing, because in the doing is already a particular expression. Therefore, if it could be expressed, it can also not be expressed. But in the non-doing, it's beyond being expressed and not expressed, and that's the infinite presence of the Creator, the mysterious one that's always present, that's specifically connected to the oral living tradition. The Torah Shebal Peh has to be a living tradition. That's the way we're connected to the author. And that's the koyach of really of Chazal. The koyach of Chazal, the power of Chazal to innovate. Kol ma shetalmud v'as asal l'chadesh is nitl l'moshe v'sina. The innovations of the Torah is because Chazal is because Eraisa v'kutzei b'richu kol echad, because Torah Eraisa kutzei b'richu and kol echad, because there are 3 links that are linked to each other, Kadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, and the Torah, and they're not linked as linked one down, and then in terms of a hierarchy, they're linked as a circle, which means because Klal Yisrael is the Nishmas Yisrael, the soul of Knesset Yisrael, is connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, in the living presence, the infinite presence of the mysterious one, the hidden one, the ever-present one that's always there, because Knesset Yisrael is connected to that presence, therefore they can also reveal new aspects of the Torah, new chidushim of the Torah, new takanas of Chazal, and to reveal it, but it's particularly revealed in a way of the non-doing. Okay, that's Bekitzer, some ideas in general, what this very, very profound Maimer in Torah talks about. All right. Have a wonderful, beautiful week. Good luck.